Hello, 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 people that are joining us. We'll give people a couple of minutes just to get in and get settled before we get going. Welcome along, everybody that is joining. Nice for people to join us on a Wednesday, aren't we today? Wednesday lunchtime. Let's settle down in a minute, then we'll get going. All right, we'll get going and then people can join. They'll catch up. Just missed my introduction, which is always good. Fill for a bit of time before we hand over the main event. Welcome, everyone. My name's Chris, member of the team here at the forum. And we're going to be delivering a webinar today looking at this, the manager's new toolkit, which Ian will go into around how can we close the action gap in the AI era. And if you don't know what the action gap is, Ian is going to explain all that. So keep your ears and your eyes peeled, and we will get into that. For those that don't know us that host this, like I say, I'm Chris. I'm from a company called The Forum. We are an industry body, independent, with a commitment for delivering learning and understanding and development within the contact centre industry and any customer operation, really. But firmly focused on how do we raise standards, how do we improve what we do day in, day out, how do we bring that learning together as a community and make sure that we're sharing best practice and delivering great outcomes. We work with a number of organisations through a membership model. Many that you can see on screen here, breadth of industries, breadth of experience. But one really common factor about our community is that everyone is really open for sharing, really open for development, really open to getting the best out of the community to make sure we deliver those outcomes that I mentioned before. And we do a number of things throughout the year, whether that's in person, whether that is live virtual like today with our friends at Centrical, and anything that we do that is live and virtual and sometimes in person. If we've got it recorded, you can go watch those things on demand or our website. So we're always there 365 days a year for you to invest some time in learning and understanding what's happening in the industry. So please spend some time on our website and have a look. One of the things that we produce each year is our best practice guides. There's 2 editions currently on our website. We've got a new edition, the 2026 Awards edition, and that is a showcase of 80 plus case studies of people that went through our awards program last year into early this year. So all the winners, all the finalists sharing their stories, what they're doing to make a real difference in their organisation, whether that's full-blown transformations or individuals that are driving real change. Some great stories in there, and I would recommend you downloading that and having a read. And then our broader best practice guide, which brings together articles, is available as well. Talking about those case studies, we are doing a virtual tour over this summer on the topics that really stood out to us through our awards finalists and winners this year. So come and hear from those people whose case studies we're presenting in that case study guide. So whether you're into planning, whether you're into quality and improvement, whether you want to understand about how do you make data and insight and create these decision systems, there is something for everybody available this summer. Register now free of charge on our website and come along and get involved with some of the work that we're doing here. On to today, though, Ian's got a lot to go through, and it's a really interesting story. In terms of the way the industry's changing and how we can use it to support our people kind of do more value add activity, and we do ask any questions. Ian's open for questions. So at the bottom of your screen you will see a Q&A function. Please take the time to have a look at that. If you've got a question, pop it in there. We will have some time at the end to get to some of those. Anything that we can't get to, Ian will take away and he will respond to you directly. Ian from my team, bit confusing, 2 Ians. He's sitting in the background, keeping an eye on all those questions. If you've got any technical problems, sound issues, anything like that, if you drop Ian a note, he will be able to deal with anything there and kind of do some troubleshooting live. With that said, I want to hand over to Mr. Chappell. Welcome along, Ian. Thank you for joining us. Really looking forward to this. So, yeah, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and likewise, and thanks everyone for putting an hour aside today to come and have a look to see what Centrical are doing. So, today is really going to focus on team leaders. Okay, it's not going to, use some people on this call will have either met Centrical or seen what we do at maybe a forum event or another industry event, or maybe seen one of our award submissions, with the forum. And we've been very much on kind of this journey around the frontline colleague, whether that's through performance management, through coaching, through micro learning, through bringing it together with gamification. But what I really want to speak about today is all about this manager's new toolkit, because we've invested a lot over the last 18 months based on what we're hearing in the industry by kind of other think tanks outside of the forum, through different research bodies and so on. And there's a gap, okay? And the main gap is, how do we make managers be more impactful with their time? And what keeps coming out time after time, and I'm going to do the usual, he's the stats to kind of back it up slide. But, in an ideal world, we would generally want managers spending a lot more time developing their people, okay? And it's not necessarily a purpose that an issue that people are drowning in insight and data. It's what do we do with that data? We have the tools, we have the kind of different data streams and different insight and BI within our organizations, but how we kind of take that and then make that into an actionable outcome for the manager and the agent is sometimes what we find is becoming an issue. And as we start bringing AI agents into our operation, maybe some of you are on that journey now, or it's something that you're kind of speaking about internally. It's only going to kind of snowball and potentially get worse. And we really want to give the manager the best possibility of being that impactful coach, being that kind of collaborator, and getting the most out of their people by using data and insight in the right way to close what we're calling the action gap. Okay, so this will probably resonate with a lot of you. What we see a lot when we come to bringing data together is there's always this thing about kind of strategy to execution. Okay, but moving from there, when you've got a disjointed set of potential point solutions, or maybe the insights aren't giving you what you want, can really cause a headache as to kind of where to focus on first. Okay, so what we look to do at Centrical is always kind of tie back any data that we put in front of managers or agents to help with this, strategy to execution piece is to really tie it back to an outcome. And what we're going to see today is very focused on the manager, but what Centrical does is it takes all of the data, it connects it together in an actionable platform, whether that's for the frontline colleague or the team leader. But then we always try and tie that back to a business outcome. And what Centrical does is it brings together all of these things that you can see around our logo in the middle there: performance management, micro learning. We've recently introduced AI role play simulations, which I'm going to show a little bit today, which we showed this at the conference in April, and it went down really well when we were talking about kind of employee mobility, that upskilling, reskilling piece at scale. Coaching is part of our, heavily part of our DNA and what we do. I'm going to show you how we've brought in some new elements for the team leader or the coach to help do that. AI insights and analytics, recognition and gamification, which is kind of where we started maybe 10 years ago. And then how we are also bringing in elements of quality evaluations and the QM piece as well. So as Chris mentioned, put any questions in the chat. But before we get into the demo, I just want to kind of show you what we're doing with our own customers. So what I'm going to show today is all about the kind of manager toolkit. So we're going to show you things like the coaching insights, ad hoc and planned. I'm going to show you things around an AI assistant that we've created for team leaders to really get managers to get to the crux of what they need to focus on, maybe give them a little bit of help in how they formulate that message and relay that to their people. How we can help them even populate coaching documents, how we can set step goals on maybe a KPI or a behavioral metric that we want someone to improve on, but then also how we bring the manager into that AI role play. So, we don't expect coaches, team leaders, managers, training teams to sit and do these face-to-face role plays of, trying to kind of emulate what a customer call would be. But what we do at Centrical is we bring the team leader in or the coach in at the kind of end point once we've done that output of how that call went. So we're going to really go into that. And what you can see here on the screen are some of the outputs of our customers using these tools today. We're seeing anything from 4 to 10 hours. Capita Experience here are doing an average 1.5 hours a week from the manager just being enabled to have the right conversations. We're seeing all kinds of conversations now around manager span of control. can we do things more? Can we do more coaching? Can we do um, more one-to-ones or more kind of touch points around performance with the same amount of team leaders or even less, and creating that wider span of control, but delivering more quality. So yeah, so as I mentioned, that's what we're going to be kind of talking about. I'll try and weave in some of those questions or these points here and where they're relevant and how people got to those. But this is what we're going to be looking at. Okay, so again, if you've seen Centrical in the past, you will have probably seen it from an agent standpoint first. Then we kind of work through the day in the life of the agent and finish on the team leader. This is going to be heavily focused on this manager toolkit that we've framed now. Okay, so please put any questions in the chat and we can, answer them towards the end. Ian, if anything pops in that's kind of pertinent, then feel free just to jump in and ask it sort of as and when. I can take them as we go
Okay.
through. But I'm going to now just jump into the demo. Let me get rid of the slides just a second. Just 1 minute there. Okay. Right, we're going to get rid of the deck. There we go. Okay. So, first of all, as I mentioned, this is kind of where, if you've seen Centrical in the past, we generally spend a lot of time, or if you've seen us at a booth at one of the forum events, this is where we kind of land, right? This is the agent view where we've got the performance and the gamification and the challenges and all the nice things that we want to put in front of the agent. But we'll probably come back and have a look at Gary in maybe a few moments' time. But I really want to focus today's session all about this view here. Okay, so this is the Centrical Manager Console. This is where team leaders in our current customer base would spend a lot of their time, working through those processes. So, whether it's a coaching process or a performance process or giving any kind of feedback, setting challenges, rewarding their team for performance improvement, it's all done from here. And what we get asked quite a lot, right, is for these kind of initiatives and for these engagements to be successful, what we always advise our customers is let's see how many of these processes that are maybe done in disparate systems on an Excel, over email, through Teams. Let's try and bring as many as possible into Centrical. And generally, what we find is our really successful customers, the ones that are seeing the big either KPI improvements or shrinkage improvements or those kind of time saving, they've generally brought a lot of their day-to-day processes into the platform. Okay, and we've got a really good customer success team who brings that to life when we go through our kind of deployment framework and our discovery and bringing the platform on board. But first of all, I just want to go through some of the elements that you can see here. We'll touch upon some of these kind of side menus as we go through. But Centrical on this user interface that you can see here has first of all, a rolled up version of the team's performance. So, I can see at a glance how my team is performing overall against their key metrics. Okay. And when we have engagements with maybe a BPO customer or even an enterprise customer who's got, different collections teams, sales through service teams, retention teams, the setup is different for each one of those. And that's the flexibility that you can have within Centrical. So if I'm in my customer service role, I'm going to see only the KPIs that I, as an individual, can have an impact on. So let's not bring in things like, average speed of answer or, maybe things like how many calls have we got queuing today? Those kind of things or the backlog. All we want to do is show the manager, this is what your people are working on, and this is how you can help them improve. So this is my snapshot of the team's performance for the month to date or for this week, depending on how this is structured. Then what we have over here at the right-hand side are my opportunities. Okay, so these are my most up-to-date insights for either a performance drop-off and something that I need to act upon, or maybe someone's improved slightly. So let's give the manager the opportunity to thank someone, give them that kind of virtual pat on the back, reward them a badge, the kind of nice things that can sometimes get missed. So the way that I kind of like to explain these are kind of my ad hoc coaching chats. Okay, these are the actions that each time I log in on a morning or the start of the week, depending on when the data is pulled in, it's going to surface my top 5 insights, and I can work through those as maybe one of the first things I do at the start of a shift or at the start of a working week. But what this is also doing is it's going to allow me to not have to go away and pull a load of reports. Okay, so what we have in Centrical, we have different places where I can see the performance. I can also obviously see the rolled up team's performance here. I've got my insights over here, and then I also have my team performance view, which we'll look at in a moment, which is more of a grid view where I can kind of slice and dice the team's data, filter it by people who are missing target, filter it by people who maybe are not hitting a plan that's been put in place, and so on. But then also use the AI assistant to go deeper into the data, just through a click of a button or just by adding in simple prompts. But what I'm going to do, just as kind of a workflow, is I'm going to first of all work through my opportunities. So here we've got Craig, Tessa, and Sam. They're all having drop-offs on some of these key metrics since the data was last pulled through. So first of all, we're going to have a look at Craig. Okay, and what I have here is I have the ability to first of all drill into the data. Okay, so I can go in there, I can open this out, and I can see how Craig has been performing since last week. We commenced on the 22nd of June. Then what it will do once it updates, it will pull through kind of the live trends. It will show where Craig is against maybe his target. But while we wait for that to happen, what it will also do, okay, for me as a manager, is it will allow me to coach. Okay, so I can have different options here. I can send a coaching action. I can do an evaluation. So if this was maybe a downward trajectory on a specific call type or skill, I could go in there and do maybe an ad hoc evaluation. Or I could even go in and create them a challenge. So again, bringing some of that gamification, that kind of reward mechanism back into improving this metric, I might set Craig a target for the week of 76%, currently 73% against an 85% target. Then I can have a combination of these actions to help Craig improve. Okay, so that's just buffering there. So let me just quickly click on this. So I'm going to send Craig a coaching action now. So what you'll see here is that it's going to fill out using our AI. And this is one of the newer parts of this manager toolkit. Was the feedback was always great around being able to have the insight and create these coaching actions, but sometimes managers don't know where to start with these conversations, or they might not have the full background or put in the full context. So what Centrical's done here is it's pulled together using AI, going back through the previous data, showing Craig, where he is against target, what was the drop off since it was last pulled in. But then what you'll also notice here is that it's bringing in Craig's related metrics. Okay, so if you're bringing in CSAT data, you might also be bringing in related behavioral KPIs from a third party platform. Okay, and then that's also going to help build up that score of CSAT overall. So Craig might be really strong in soft skills, and he might be really strong in empathy, but maybe it's his rapport that's bringing the score down overall. Centrical will take all of that data, then create kind of a recommended coaching action that I can send. The good thing here is that we never send anything automatically through Centrical. We always allow for the manager to have that final say, to make sure that kind of it's written in their language and that it looks as though it's come from a human rather than just being automatically generated. I'm sure we've all received, AI generated emails and presentations where it just looks like it hasn't been written by, a human that you would interact with every day. But once I'm happy with that, and it might be that I take some of this out, I might go in and tweak that, maybe go in and even change the date. I want to give them an extra week to do that. Once I'm happy with it, I can send that. So Centrical's done the heavy lifting around pulling that data, showing me what the gap is, what the drop-off's been, what is even one of the impacting metrics. It's one of those softer skills that's bringing down the overall score. Once I'm happy with that, I can go off and send that. So that's kind of more your ad hoc coaching, the ability to act upon these insights and signals as and when they appear, and then send one of those actions. Okay. Now, what I also have over here, which we're going to come on to, is my to-do list. And what this is looking at are more kind of and this is not kind of scheduled activities from a WFM perspective, but scheduled activities that me as a manager need to do every week. So I might have to complete a coaching form once a week, or a coaching conversation once a week, a performance review once a month. Maybe I need to do my side-by-side evaluations once a week. Depends, and it's different from business to business. But what we can do is we can split out the difference between the ad hoc, as and when they need to happen, and the ones that maybe need to happen on a weekly or monthly basis. So we're going to come back to those in a moment. Before we do that, just while we're still on this performance track, I want to now go across to team performance. Okay, so it's given me the insight. It's shown me how the team are performing in that middle column, kind of rolled up. But now I have the ability to go in and have a little bit of a deeper dive into the data. Okay, so this is maybe where, as part of my coaching cadence or my performance cadence, I start my week. I come into this part and say, okay, Craig, Tessa, and Ian and Sam are all missing on quite a few of those metrics. I get that insight into maybe, what's bringing it down. I could even go in there as well and look at any kind of call drivers. So if we've got, maybe different skills making up first contact resolution as an example, I can go in there. I can see, maybe on a specific day, it's a specific call type that's driving Craig's first contact resolution. If you're capturing this today, so I can maybe say, okay, every time Craig does a late shift, there's a specific skill that he gets wrong all the time, and customers are calling back. So it's given me that level of insight, so I can then go in and take that action. Now, what you might have noticed there, okay, from here, is that I do have the ability to take those actions that we saw earlier. Okay, and you can see there that I can see how Craig's performing against the target, against the team average, and so on. And this doesn't use any AI. Okay, this has been in Centrical for quite some time now. But what you'll see here is that managers got kind of a set of tools that they can use to hopefully get that correct response from Craig based on what I know about him as an individual that kind of makes him tick, and that I know that he will act upon and hopefully improve that score going forward, or that performance going forward. So I can use a combination of those tools to hopefully, or pull those levers to get the right response from Craig. But again, we don't expect managers to be spending all day pulling data, running reports, trying to make sense of the world when there's a load of different stuff going on. And this is why we introduced our AI assistant. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just kind of walk through some of the things that you can do within here, some of the things that might be of interest to helping team managers be these more efficient, more effective coaches with their people. So what it's going to do, first of all, click the button and it will summarize that team's performance. Okay, so the team shows strong CSAT above target, led by Damien and Gary. However, critical gaps exist. FCR 78 against an 85% target. Quality's not great. Adherence needs some work. We've got Craig and Tessa, who are currently ranked lowest amongst most of those. But then what we also have is Damien excels in customer facing metrics, but needs an after call work improvement. Those are the examples in there. What I can then do is it would also give me a kind of at a glance graph. So I can see CSAT doing okay on that. So let's maybe focus on some of the others that are below target, or things that I know that I'm going to be asked by my ops lead on. So what we have here is the ability now to drill into that data. Okay, so I get the option of the prompts like you would in kind of Copilot, or in ChatGPT, or whatever AI you're using today. So what I'm going to have a look at is just, let's have a quick look at the schedule adherence trends. Let's kind of deep dive into that one a little bit more. So again, we're hovering between 70 and 79%. We're still lowest. I can see there who the who's maybe trending positively. Craig, Laura, and Zach probably need some work. No team members achieved it in the past 6 weeks, indicating a systematic issue or systemic issue requiring attention to scheduling practices or workload management. Okay, great stuff. So what I can now do is I can now start taking action, because I want to get to a point where Centrical will create a drafted coaching prompt. So just like what we saw earlier with when I went through that with Craig, what I can do from here is start comparing people, analyzing the team, or just go straight to Craig and let's just start coaching him. So what it will do is it will pull in all of the insight. It will give me the kind of rationale and the context about what it is we want to improve and why we want to do that. Then I'm hoping that it's then going to create one of these kind of drafted coaching prompts. Okay. So yeah, so just like what we saw earlier, it's given me all the context. So again, I can either do it from that front page based on those insights, or if I want to do a little bit more of a deep dive on those guys who are currently in the red, I've got the ability to do it from here. And again, just like we saw before, I get the chance to preview and send it, maybe take that out, change the date, whatever it might be. We can also have things what we call coaching templates, so that you can track in the analytics what people are being coached on and why. Once I'm happy with that, again, I would just click on send and that will go through to him. But we have customers that are trialing all kinds of great stuff in here. We have team leaders in our customer base who have a whole list of their favorite prompts on a OneNote or Notepad, and they just use those a lot of the time. I even saw one of our team leaders in one of our other customers who are now trying to kind of forecast their individual team's performance. So, they know they've got Black Friday sale coming up, or there's going to be a peak in volume. What would happen to Craig if we saw a peak in volume based on how he's performed in the last 6 weeks? So that you can kind of start getting ahead with that. And I know generally that's not something that team leaders would normally be expected to do, but this gives you the ability to track back through that previous data and maybe look ahead to some of the things that are, coming around the corner. And it might not be 100% accurate because it doesn't have all the inputs around volumes and AHT spikes and all that kind of stuff, but it might at least get you ahead of the game in terms of what you need to do for your people from even a well-being perspective, right? It's just allowing you to be on the front foot as a team leader and act upon all those things as and when they need to be acted upon. One thing I didn't show, and I'm going to show that now, is the overall team insights. So, as I mentioned, we get those top five on the front screen. But what we've recently introduced, and I just want to show this for maybe some of you guys who have to report on compliance flags, or maybe you're in a regulated industry, or some of our BPO customers that we work with have to report these things back to their clients about things being acted upon, are our external insights. Okay, so with Centrical, we can bring in any data point, but now what we have is kind of these signals or these alerts that can maybe be sent from from an external platform. Okay, so if we again, poor Craigie always seems to be the one in trouble here today, but let's have a look at this. So what this is going to show first of all, okay, if I go back to this one here, is it's saying that Craig has failed to authenticate a caller during a security verification process. They proceed to discuss the account details without confirming the identity, classic kind of breach. This incident posed significant risk to customer data security and could lead to unauthorized access, etc., etc. Now, what I do here is I have the ability to, again, send one of those coaching actions. But what Centrical will also do is not just sort of say, what he's kind of done wrong, but it will also flag, the second time in 90 days that a failed caller authentication has been flagged. Then what it will do is it will give me this kind of structure to kind of capture this and log it. Okay. And I'm going to show you when we go through the kind of coaching wrap up using the AI, what we can also do around that as well. So everything that's happening, I'm capturing this, I'm acting upon it. And that includes these kind of more, I guess, more serious red flags, whether it's quality compliance, commercial, whatever it might be. We can have this put in front of the agent so they always know what it is that is being kind of flagged, raised, what they need to work on, and so on and so forth. Okay. So, anything in the chat, Ian? Anything?
Yeah, one quick
Yeah,
question before you move on. Just one person asked, will this work with NICE IEX and CX1?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we have customers today that use NICE, they use CX1, they use Genesis, they use Verint. Centrical has what we call open architecture. Okay, so don't think of this needing kind of the real-time feed from a CCAS platform into WFM for your kind of adherence screens. What this is basically doing is it's taking a API feed or even just a data file at an interval that suits again, going back to tying this to an objective, we always say, okay, what is it you're trying to achieve first of all? Then we work on kind of what the cadence of that data being brought into Centrical would need to be. Because for things like, CSAT, you might bring that in once a week. First contact resolution might come in overnight. Average handle time might be a couple of times a day. We can really sort of bring it in at any point, but it always uses that kind of historical data rather than those really heavy real-time integrations. So yeah, we play nice with everyone, pardon the pun, because we are built around open architecture. So yeah, we can work with NICE and CX1. Yeah. Okay, right. Now I just want to quickly show what I've been sort of alluding to already. And then this is kind of where we can give the manager the insight that they need to, have a conversation. So what you'll see here on this screen is that this is the team missions. Some Centrical terminology, just for those guys who are maybe not familiar with Centrical. We class a mission as a piece of content. Okay, so when you see the missions from the agent side, that could be a policy update, it could be a news or a company bulletin. It could be some learning around the KPIs that I need to work on. It could be sales through service metrics, soft skills, really anything. Or it could be things like the evaluations and feedback that are sent through the platform. Okay. And what we do is we give this view to the manager so that the manager can see what's been the success rate and completion. But because we're onto this kind of manager toolkit discussion today, I want to show you kind of what we've done around the coaching. Okay. So I'm going to go into weekly coaching. And from here on weekly coaching, what we can do is again, we can go in and use the AI to help fill out a coaching discussion. And we have different ways of doing it that I'm gonna look at and speak about in a moment. But we are going to focus today on let's focus on maybe Damien down the bottom here. Okay. There's already one in progress, so let's see what this one is looking like. Okay, so this one here, okay, I've already started this. What it's doing, first of all, so in the middle here, this is going to be the kind of final product, right? We're going to have a completed coaching discussion that's captured, that is all in Centrical, that we can, report on and so on. But what we can also do is create these kind of step goals with actions on the back of them. So we have the ability now to bring in the data, see if there's been any previous, actions that we've set and whether or not he hit them or whether he failed those. Then using the AI, and I'll just, the instructions is the AI will take these instructions when we upload the coaching notes and it will automatically populate this form. Okay. So first of all, we know which KPIs we're setting goals on. Okay, we know what we're kind of looking to refer to, but now we want to capture that, and we have different ways of doing it. Okay, so we can upload a recording of maybe a Zoom one-to-one or a Zoom coaching discussion. We can upload coaching notes. Okay, so whether that is type notes, we've even been playing around with just handwritten ones that we upload, take a picture of them, upload them in here as well, and it's going to populate this based against kind of the coaching framework, the framework being the instructions. So what we tell customers is the more context you can give the AI in the instruction piece, the more accurate it will be against the notes when it comes to complete it. So we're going to upload a file, okay, because I don't have a recording. So let me just upload a file. I've got some coaching notes examples here. And these are just classic kind of, we discussed X, Y, and Z. You need to improve Y, blah, blah, blah. We're going to use coaching example number 2. Okay, we're going to upload that. It's been uploaded successfully. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully generate and populate this completed coaching form. And again, this kind of human in the loop ethos that Centrical has, this is not going to send anything off to Damien. It's first of all just going to show me kind of based on those notes, what he did well, and again, against that framework. And then also, what do we need to improve on? So call openings are cleaner, more confident they were a month ago, but the pace on complex calls is still too fast. Customers had to ask for the same thing to be repeated twice in one monitored call. Then what we can do is we can set a focus. So holds the biggest time drain, focus this month on preempting what's needed before picking up the call, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Once I'm happy with that, I would then submit that. Now, these can be built and you can create a scoring framework on these. So if you want a kind of a pass or fail or, really break down the different sections to even pass or fail, we can do that. And I'm going to show that in a moment. But once I'm happy with that, I would just submit that to Damien and then that would go through to him. Okay. That would then pop up in his side of Centrical. So again, going back to the agent view, that would pop up in Damien's view, and you can see the coaching actions or the form that's been sent through, and hopefully get an agreement on that, or you could send it back to the team leader with notes if there was maybe things that he didn't agree with or that needed clarifying. Okay, so again, trying to save some time, trying to do these things more often, but using AI to really help build the context and make sure that we don't miss anything. So, we're not relying on managers to have a conversation and scribble everything down, then try and remember that and type it up. We can maybe capture through different means now and then populate those coaching forms going forward using AI. Okay, so that's a little bit around the manager. Again, there's so much more in there that we probably won't get to today, but what I wanted to just finally close out with, probably spending 5 minutes now, is more around how we've been bringing in the AI role play as well. So as we know, AI role play, again, I took my first call in August of 1999. I remembered being in new hire training doing role plays sat back to back with a colleague. One was pretending to be an angry customer, one was pretending to be the agent, sat in front of colleagues, doing this. And it's so tough, quite cringy. It's not really an experience that people generally like. So what we've created with Centrical is something a lot more scalable, okay, and a lot more reactive, and that is our AI role play. So what I'm going to do is I won't go into the role play itself because the call itself could take 5 minutes, then it needs to score it, update it, and so on. But what I'll just show you is how we send that through to the manager to have the kind of final say and set some of those coaching actions. So what we do is we create the scenario using AI. We can create scenarios on literally anything. I'm back now in Gary's view. Okay, so this is Gary the agent, customer service agent. Again, just to recap, you can see his performance, how he's tracking against targets, any kind of knowledge refreshers that's going to help him improve this week based on what the knowledge gap is, or if there's been a performance gap, whatever it might be. What he also has is he will have some kind of development time in that week, and maybe he's going live next week with a new call type. Okay. So what we want to do is make sure that he's A, prepared for that, B, give him the ability to practice more than once and get instant feedback, but also we can then score that against a quality framework. Okay. So I'm going to go into role play and feedback. I've got different ones in here, but I want to have a look at this bill dispute. So as part of Gary's role now, he needs to, do billing calls, which can be quite tricky depending on what the vertical is. But this one here, I think it's a mobile phone one, or even just a general just credit card one. I'm going to just open this out. You can see that he's already tried it already. Okay, he's done 2 of 9 attempts. What I'm going to have a look at is the last attempt. So with Gary, what we saw is that there was 100 points on the table for him. Again, bringing that gamification, that reward back into the process. This was the customer. And the good thing, and a point to note here about the AI customers that we have in the platform, is that he could try this call 9 times with Jordan Mitchell. And each time, even though the query is the same, Jordan Mitchell will respond differently to questions. So you might ask something the first time round and she might be okay. The second time round, she might get a little bit prickly about why she's being asked this. So it allows agents to sort of not only follow a process, not only know what's expected of them, but to think on their feet, because we don't want these calls to be 100% scripted all of the time, because that's just not the reality. So this is going to be the role play pointers. I can see what my tips for success were. Stay focused, guide the customer through the information needed, avoid unnecessary delays, etc., etc. Okay, and then what it is, this is going to be the scenario. So what's in this practice? Then what I can do is I can go in and I can review this. So this is my previous attempt. When I click into there, I can also see some of her kind of, mock CRM information. I can go in there and read through the transcript so I can see, what it was that we discussed. Or if I wanted to, I could go back and listen back to the call. Okay, so I could go and listen to that call to see maybe where I need to work out to do a little bit better. The AI will automatically tell me what my strengths were. So I'm polite and professional throughout, using courtesy phrases like, I'm really sorry to hear that. Thank you for confirming. But I do need to improve on certain areas, which is obviously reflected in my score of 45%. Okay, so what I want to do now is, first of all, I can see I've got a score of 45%. I can now go in and view how that would have been scored, or how I would have got on if that was an actual real live call being marked against the quality framework. So you can see there that I've got my passes, I've got my fails. I can see at the kind of section level within that framework where I'm strong and maybe where I need to do better. So pretty professional, decent at empathy, very clear at communicating, but everything else maybe needs some work. And what Centrical's AI has also done is it's used the instructions to, again, say whether or not I've passed or failed or done good or bad. And again, this can be 1 out of 5, drop downs, yes or no. Different scoring is available, when you come to create these forms. They're really customizable. But it's also then telling me kind of where I've failed. We can also set auto fails. So again, going back to the breach we saw with Craig when he didn't pass the customer through the right security checks. If I did that on one of these simulated calls, we can also have an auto fail in there as well. But the good thing is it would still score out the rest of the form. So you might have auto failed and got a big fat 0, but you did really well with your call efficiency and your professionalism. You just need to work on the stuff that's going to kind of get you in trouble, which is the security part. So this is what Gary sees. Okay, you can see, what he did well. You can see the context about maybe what he needs to do differently next time. But what's really good about this is that it doesn't kind of just end here, because the manager gets this view as well. So if we go back to his team leader, the manager, if we go into team missions, and then we go to the role play and feedback, and we're going to have a look at build dispute, is that the manager also gets that view. Okay, Craig's hasn't done well, doesn't well there again. But what I can now do as a manager or a coach, I can go in and have a look at that simulated call. Okay, I can go in there and see, okay, let's maybe go in and have a listen back to that. Once I've listened to that and read through, how it's been scored, I can then take action. So just like we saw in other parts of Centrical, and again, having these actions to take and really helping with everything that we've been speaking about today, is I've got a drop down of actions that I can take. Okay, if I listen to the call and decide that maybe it wasn't all bad, okay, I can go in there and change some of this. So I actually thought he did really well, and I want to take that out altogether and just put in a little comment like, great call. I can do that, and once I resubmit that, what will happen is it will rescore this. Okay, so again, he's gone from 45 to 55, but now he's past that call efficiency element. Then once I'm happy with that, and I want to say, okay, Craig, a little bit more kind of softer things that I want you to work on, I can go in and send those actions. So it could be one of those coaching actions again. I want you to work on X, Y, and Z around your empathy for the next week. Redo it next week, and we'll see, how you get on, and maybe we can work on something different. Or it could be that he's failed on something that I know we've got a piece of micro learning in Centrical that will help him improve. Okay, so it might be like, okay, Craig, go back and listen to kind of soft skills 101 or read soft skills 101 and focus on the empathy piece. Bring that into your calls. You're probably going to do okay. Or it could be that he's improved. So it might be that he's still kind of off target in this simulated environment, but there's been that slight improvement. So I might even send him a kudos, kind of a well done for that improvement, that he's on the right track. Or it could be a combination of those things. So again, point I'm making here is that we're trying to remove a lot of that heavy lifting from the manager's day. That would, you think if you had a team of 12 or 15, you probably couldn't do this. Even if you had a dedicated coach to your team, it would be really difficult to do this at scale. So this is why we're trying to put the closed loop piece through the manager, and then allowing the manager to have that kind of human lens and then interact with their people about what needs to happen moving forward. And that's all I was going to show today. So I think I've gotten that done, Chris, with 2 minutes to spare.
Amazing. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, really interesting. There's a question that came in. I think you mentioned it a little bit just towards the end there around some of the micro learning stuff that's available.
Yeah.
The question that was asked was around, I think it was just before you moved into the role play bit, but
Yeah.
can the system close the loop and include links or nudges to an e-learning event or a video around the area of development or focus that you're looking on?
Yeah,
I assume the
yeah.
answer is yes, but
Yeah, so there's two things I can show these really quickly. So first of all, I'm going to show you this. So this is an AI summary that each week the agent would get this at the start when they first log in. These can be scheduled. So mine's scheduled to pop up on a Monday morning in my demo environment. But what this will do, if I just click on show me, it will show Gary kind of his wins or his things he needs to focus on this week just by going through the data. But what it will also do is it will tell him any learning that's outstanding. So again, it's got learning opportunities, so he needs to complete these things. Or if it was linked back to performance and it was a kind of a KPI drop, we can even show him the learning that's linked back to that performance type, which we would call a boost. So if we go down here, you can see that we can tie the micro learning back to performance, again,
right.
without the intervention of a team leader. So this might just be something about the probing soft skill where he's off target. I would click on the boost, go in, answer a couple of questions, get that fresh in his mind, then he can put that into his first call of the day or the week or whatever it is. That's the issue. So yeah, so there's different ways of bringing that in, but we do like to kind of tie that learning nudge, to use the term, back to the performance dip.
Yeah, no, cheers, Ian. Thank you. And then just kind of having to think about some of the stuff that you've talked about there, right? So you showed us three different things kind of working together. But where do you see them making the biggest kind of real world impact? Because always nice seeing a demo and
Yeah.
see what it's doing. But actually, where do you see these things actually having that greatest impact in, in the real
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
connect?
So just to be like really candid, so far it's been around the AI assistant,
Yeah,
right? And that's because we still have endemically in the industry, the manager role is tougher than it's ever been, but also we still kind of backfill from the operation. There generally isn't a team leader finishing school. I think people are getting better at it, but what we're finding is that managers are sometimes sat scratching their heads. They've got so much to do. They get work piled on them that's got nothing to do with improving their people, yet they still expect to do all of these other things as well as do the development side, which can sometimes become a box ticking exercise because they haven't got the time to spend on it that they would like. So where we've seen a lot of what I call ROI or business casing around some of the new manager stuff is all around the AI assistant. And that's because it's a bit more mature than some of the other things. So for example, the weekly coaching where we can populate that with AI, that came out maybe last month. The AI role play that was launched in Q1 of this year. Okay, so that again, that's just customers are currently onboarding that functionality and getting familiar with where it works really well, and maybe where it might not work as well. But the AI assistant's been in the platform now for over a year, and I think people just get it. I think they just see straight away the value because they can just ask the AI anything about performance and it helps them formulate that conversation.
oh, good. Cheers, mate. And then thinking about kind of guardrails, I think more than anything else. What we don't want to do is kind of really kind of create pressure on people. We want it to be more, supportive. How do we make sure we don't kind of turn the screw too much or let the AI do stuff that kind of can become a bit more, you know, demotivating as opposed to
Yeah,
help us along the way?
yeah, absolutely. So what we always do when we go through our when we go th first of all, what we always say is that Centrical should never replace a face-to-face conversation. It should never be for the manager to be able to hide behind the screen to send a tough message, right? I think best practice should always be, that's part of a manager's day is to have that kind of human interaction, whether it's a good message that's easier to deliver than something that is maybe in the red or is a performance issue. So what we always try and get customers to look at through the change management process when they onboard the platform or onboard some of the new functionality like AI Assistant is how do we bring Centrical into that coaching opportunity that's already there. It's not going to completely rip out a process, but it's just there to kind of complement and help. So, I would say that we wouldn't rip and replace a quality framework, a coaching framework, performance framework, but we just give more insight to have those conversations more often. And the feedback from customers is great, right? That it's sometimes the opposite. So having more conversations more often about performance is better than just an agent not getting a view of their performance at all, but then they go into their performance review once a month or even once a week, not knowing what's going to be discussed. So by having more conversations, we find that generally it's a lot more of a positive process because everyone knows what's expected, what they're walking into, where the improvements need to be, and so on.
Cheers. I've got one more question, then I'm going to bring Ian in,
Yeah.
our Ian, he can ask the final question. So he's been sat in the background doing a very good job of making sure things are working. So before I add his spotlight, make sure his camera's on and he's got his air combed. But we'll do that. So my last question before I hand over to Ian is most people or most organisations will have different tools. Or so they'll have a QA function doing QA type stuff. They'll have WFM doing its WFM stuff. Where is that approach falling short, do you think, in your experience of kind of bringing that information together?
Yeah, and I think it's exactly that. I think it generally it isn't brought together, or if it is, it's in a really complex report that's owned by a data expert or a data team that are experts, and the action on the back of it isn't clear, right? So when we speak about Centrical, you'll hear us being described as a performance intelligence operating system, right? We are that kind of layer of orchestration of all of those data points so that it makes sense to the agent, the manager knows where they stand, but then through our analytics, the ops and the senior leadership team can see what's being done with all of the data that's feeding in. Because I think it's really easy to have an argument that something went wrong, Okay, it went wrong and it went wrong at this time, and it's because these people weren't doing what they should have been doing. But that next step is, what's the action on the back of it, and how do we close the loop that it's been acted upon, that managers are doing their part to help improve, that the agents doing their bit that's been actioned. So yeah, so I would say that Centrical isn't there to rip and replace
Yeah.
these platforms. We're not an expert in quality, we're not an expert in WFM at all. But what we can do is we can bring that data in and be that orchestration layer so that it's that one-stop shop and that people can see the correlation between all of the things that the platform is doing.
Okay. I've got one question in the chat before I come to
Yeah.
Ian's final killer question. Just giving you more time to prep for the best question you've ever had in your life, Ian. It won't be. But anyway, so Owen's putting there, are you tapping into call transcript as well as the metrics to help inform what to target when coaching or training sessions? For
Yeah,
example, Craig is down on first call resolution, and it's a certain call type that he seems to struggle on.
yeah, yeah, absolutely on. So let's see, I might have it in here, but just bear with me. I'll see if I can show it in the demo. So what we have in Centrical is the ability to bring in different layers of data. Okay, so again, we can bring in these details, and what you would have in these details is say for example, it's bringing in a score. What we can also have is the detail in here as well. So a bit like what we saw in the external insights, we can bring that in so that on this day you scored 60%, and this is what was highlighted from the transcript that pulled you down. So we can bring it into here from the manager. Here we can show it if you want to bring those in as those new external insights every time there's a quality fail. Put that in as a manager insight, set an SLA on that. Okay, so you can see from the insights here that I've got my QA red flags, which is I think the example that I showed. But we can set a due date on there. Then what we can do is we can then report that further up the chain to kind of ops and any team that deals with compliance and those kind of things about how many of those have been acted upon, which teams are the repeat offenders, which agents within those teams are the ones that are maybe having these issues more than others. So yeah, we can bring it in a number of different ways, and then it can be coached on, which you can see there.
Cheers, Ian. Thank you. Thanks for the question, Owen. Comment, Mr. Robertson.
So yeah, I guess with AI and insight tools in the past, one of the big challenges I've always seen is it can be seen as Big Brother or even used as Big Brother. More data is another stick to beat people with. So
yeah.
How do you ensure that what you're doing is used to support people rather than just adding additional pressures?
Yeah. So it's a really great question, and again, this is a big part of what we do with any new customer. Okay, is a big part of what we do is kind of a business discovery and a technical discovery, and within those work streams, this is all part of once we have a new customer who's going to be onboarded, we go through this process of how do we want the system to look, what do we want it to achieve, how are we going to reward people for doing the right things, showing the right behaviors. But within that, there's a huge change management work stream. And within that change management work stream, that's where we kind of get people excited that this is something for them. Okay. And this is where you can bring gamification back in for rewarding people for that kind of job well done, for those incremental improvements. But it all comes from having the frontline colleagues, first of all, on board. Even a lot of the time, they will get involved in the design. What do they want to see in the virtual store? What do they want to see in the course catalog, which is their developmental learning? They might want to be a team leader. They might want to go and work in the planning team. So we get them to kind of help frame and build the platform, how it's going to impact their people. So again, the change management piece, good discovery is crucial. What is it we're trying to fix? Who's it going to impact? How do the people work? What have we tried in the past, et cetera, et cetera. But then also that change management piece of bringing people, to use a really cheesy term, kind of bringing people on the journey with us. Because if all of a sudden you just sent a login to an agent and say, right, this is where you're now going to see your stats and you're going to get loads of coaching prompts from your manager, probably more than you've ever had, it's going to fall flat on its backside. So doing all of that good work up front, and making sure that it's right from day one through really good validation and UAT, that's what we've found lands really well. And again, we're using gamification to reward people for maybe things that they would normally get missed because they might get a monthly bonus or a monthly thank you or whatever it is, we can do that a lot more often using Centrical and some of the mechanics that are in there. So yeah, so discovery, change management before you go live are two huge levers that customers can use to make sure this lands correctly.
Excellent. Cheers, Ian. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. Conscious it is 5 to the hour, and give people a chance to have a little 5-minute refresh before jumping on to whatever they're doing at 1 o'clock. Absolute pleasure, Ian, as always, to hear how Centrical continues to evolve. And it's in this world where we're changing so quickly. And things are just moving at a pace that we've probably never experienced before. It's nice to start to see what tools are coming available to help support people where complexity is becoming greater, and the time I need to spend, it has to be valuable time spent with people, and tools like this allow us to surface the information we need to make those interactions that we have with our team members and operationally really valuable conversations to allow us to make better decisions, better interventions, whatever those things might be. So thank you very much. I'm sure Ian's more than happy for anybody to reach out and ask any questions. You can find him anywhere but LinkedIn, and if you go via Centrical, you'll be able to reach out. I'm sure there's a contact us bit on Centrical as well, and all that type of stuff. So please, if you have any more questions for Ian, reach out to him directly, or come to myself or Ian, and we can forward stuff on to the team at Centrical as well. So if you do want to know more, learn more, hear more from the team at Centrical, just get in touch. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. Glad and thankful that you've joined us for over your lunchtime on a Wednesday. It's always a privilege that people decide to spend time with us. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you very much, Ian. It's good night from me, and it's good night from him. See you later. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye.